Yep, always the right button. All right, so welcome, morning people. What we're going to do is talk about the syllabus, go over kind of the layout of this class, how things are going to play out, your assignments, how to get in touch with me, all that jazz. At any point you guys have questions, just stop me and ask them, and that goes for the entire really semester. I'm here to help you guys learn, so the best way to do that is for you guys to ask questions. So here we go. Here's my contact information. Probably the best way to get in touch with me is through email. I'm generally, unless it's a weekend, I'm generally pretty good about getting back to you guys within a couple hours. That being said, if there's like a freak out moment and you need to call me or text me or whatever, that's fine too. So that's my cell phone number. I am hardly ever in my office. When I'm here, I'm teaching generally, so I don't put my office phone on there because you won't really ever reach me there. But my office is down the hall to the left, 3205C, and I'm in the same suite with Ms. Higdon, who's going to be teaching you guys one of the teachers of 371, and then our new social studies methods teacher. She's getting married, but Dr. Taylor. You can find me down there. My mailbox is on the other side. If there's anything you ever need to drop off, it's all our departmental mailboxes are down there in the corner, across from the main office, the main MSSE office. And so if you guys ever need to put anything in my box, it's in there. So I'm here like most Wednesdays. Like when we're here for class, I'm here obviously. I usually have about an hour between when I finish up with the morning class and start with you guys. That's always a good time to meet if you need to. Right after class is totally fine. My Wednesdays became marathon sessions this year because I'm also teaching the seminar class that goes along with student teaching. So that starts at 4:40. So I'm here from 4:40 and then that ends probably around 7:30, I think. So on Wednesdays, when we have class, I'm here from probably about 8:30 in the morning to 7:30. And I'm teaching mostly straight through, but there's pockets in there where you can totally catch me. And that's the best time. So if you need to meet, let me know. I'll also be over on occasional Friday and occasional Monday when we have meetings. I always do that too. Email stuff, like if you want feedback or have questions or anything like that, email, we can do it that way. We can talk on the phone. We can set up Skype. I'm definitely here to help you guys, so don't hesitate to contact me and let me know how we can do it. Even if it's not face-to-face, we'll make it work, and I'll make sure that you guys have what you need to be successful in this class. So even if it's a distance type thing, we'll make it work. So that's just in terms of seeing me or getting in touch with me. So here are our course objectives, and these are written in what we call KUD format, what students should know, understand, and then be able to do. This is the same way that you guys are going to write objectives when you create your unit and lesson plans in here, and we'll get into how you do that. That's a big part of this class is learning how to write these objectives. But just as a quick overview, understandings are big ideas, right? So they're generalizations, they're thoughts about the bigger picture. Okay, knowledge are facts. Basically like things you could answer like on a matching test or multiple choice test. And then the do's are skills that you're expected to learn in this course. I'm not going to read all these. You guys are certainly capable of taking a look at them. But before next class, just try, if you haven't already, just kind of take a look and see if you have any questions about these objectives, and in particular, your understandings, right? So we might start next class just kind of asking, are there any questions about the understanding objectives and big ideas? And what that tends to do is if you take a look at them and you think about where this class is headed, it helps you stay focused over the course of the semester, so you kind of know what you're supposed to be learning, along with obviously what we're learning in class. So it just kind of makes things gel a little bit more together. So those are our course objectives. There are Virginia standards and in-task competencies, and don't ask me what in-task stands for, as I'm not entirely sure. But it's essentially like teacher competencies. And so this course aligns with things that teachers are expected to have in the field. Okay, so these are basically the skills that you guys, when you finish this class, you'll have a set of skills that will help you not only in your further JMU coursework here in the College of Education, but also when you get out in the field and become a teacher, even if it's your practicum or student teaching. There's also JMU conceptual framework items that this aligns with. So I think there's 8 or 10 conceptual framework items that are there for the JMU College of Education. These are just essentially saying what the educational professional does, or what you know, or what you're skilled with. And so again, we're just talking about alignment. So we've got these, Virginia expectations for teachers. We've got JMU expectations for teachers. And we're just making sure that this course aligns with all those things, so that we're preparing you guys for what you need to be prepared for. Okay, so those are there as well. The required text and materials, there's one book you need to get, and I don't know if the bookstore has it or not, and if they don't, it's totally fine. We're not going to actually use it until probably at least 3 weeks from now, if not 4 weeks from now. So as long as you get on and buy it in the next couple of days, you should be fine. So this is the only one you actually have to purchase. It's the Classroom Instruction That Works book, and make sure you get the second edition. There's a first edition to this too. It's actually got different authors, but if you just looked at the title, if you Google the title, you might get the earlier version. Just make sure you get the second edition, because the chapters are a little bit different and this is a little more comprehensive. So this is the only thing you actually have to purchase for class. Okay. We're going to read some chapters from this book, the Understanding by Design book. This is kind of our if we had a Bible for your coursework here at JMU, this would be it. But the nice thing is it's available online in the JMU library, so you don't have to purchase it if you don't want to. If you're somebody who likes hard copies, feel free to buy it. I don't think it's super expensive, and it's been around for a while, so you can probably get it secondhand used for pretty cheap too. But it's online, so you don't necessarily need to buy it. There may be a couple times where I'll ask you guys to print off and bring in some pages from a chapter just to have them as we work in class. I'll let you know. Okay, so you don't have to every time you read something print it off. I'll let you know if you need to bring something in from this. But this one's online, so you don't need to buy it. We're gonna in a second. I'll show you guys how to find your state and national content standards, and then an organizational binder. Notebook, whatever of some sort will help you in this class as well, just to kind of keep organized. There's a bunch of articles and things we'll be reading that are on Blackboard too, and all those articles and readings are up there already. So you'll see in the syllabus as we go through which days you're reading what and all that jazz. So let's take a quick second and look at how to find your state and national standards. So the first set of standards you're going to use are the SOLs, and I heard a couple people that are not from Virginia here. If you're from Virginia, you know what SOLs are. If you went to public schools, it's a really unfortunate acronym, but maybe kind of apt. So standards of learning are state standards in Virginia, and also the name of the tests that are given at the end of the year that align with the standards. Okay, they have them for pretty much every subject area, and then it gets a little sketchy when you get into like foreign languages and stuff like that. They have standards. Some places have competencies, they call them, and I don't know why they use competencies instead of standards. But these standards are what we kept in Virginia, okay? And what you'll be using when you get out in the field and into school. So you want to start getting comfortable with these now, okay? Probably not next week, but the following week, I'm going to ask you guys to go, well, actually, maybe go ahead and bring them in next week just to be on the safe side. So if you go to Virginia, the Department of Education homepage, or you can just Google Virginia SOLs or Virginia Department of Ed or whatever. This is SOL-based instructional resources. And so what you can see over here in the main menu, they've got all the subject areas on the right. And within each subject area, the standards are broken down by grade level. Okay, so if we just look at a bunch of math people, so look at math, you can see here they've got them all for every single math class. So what you're going to do, and you can either do Word or PDF, it doesn't matter, is for next week, think about, you're going to write a unit plan and a lesson plan for this class. So think about what grade level you'd like to develop that for. It's not set in stone. As you get into the next couple weeks, you might say, oh wait, no, I don't want to do that anymore. I want to switch to this. That's fine. Eventually it will get mostly set in stone because this class kind of builds. So we're going to build a unit, kind of chronologically, and then you're going to build a lesson the same way. And so once you get to a certain depth into it, you're not going to want to go back and redo a bunch of stuff. But for the first couple weeks, it's totally up in the air. You're not going to hurt yourself by switching. But try to think about what subject area. So if you're thinking, I really want to do middle school, I really want to do government, I really want to do civics, I want to do Virginia U.S. history, I want to do trig, I want to do algebra 2, whatever it might be, just try to think about what that subject area, what that grade level is, okay? And you'll see it listed no matter what subject area you go to. It's going to look the exact same as this, okay? So what you're going to need to bring in next week is either the Word or PDF of the standards only. Okay. Over here, next to the standards, is another column. And this stuff is curriculum framework. Let me show you the difference here. If we look at, say, grade 8. So they're going to give you a quick overview, and then the standards look like this. Okay. They're broken down by, concepts, essentially. And then under each concept, there's the main standard, which is like 8.14, or sorry, that's not a very good example. It looks like they've changed these. So, you can see like the student will verify the Pythagorean theorem, the student will apply the Pythagorean theorem. So that's a standard. Okay, there's an A and a B to it, so there's kind of two substandards to go with it, but that's a standard. Okay, these are shorter to the point type of stuff. Now, if we look at the curriculum framework, it's going to look a little bit different because what it does is take those standards and really breaks them down. So this is a much longer document. You can see the standard: student will investigate and solve practical problems. That's the standard up there. Then down here, it's saying all the stuff that goes along with it. So this is the curriculum framework. So here you can see the difference between standards and curriculum. So standards are kind of like the jumping off point for curriculum. Curriculum is the really specifics about what students should know, understand, and do. It's includes assessments that that's gonna measure students' progress towards this stuff. And so curriculum extends standards and includes like materials, assessments, and learning goals. Okay, so kind of like the way I like to describe it, like curriculum is kind of like the playbook, and instruction is kind of like the game, right? Or a script is kind of like your curriculum, and the performance is your instruction, right? So the instruction aligns with the curriculum and is kind of like the manifestation of that curriculum, right? If that makes sense. So curriculum is kind of the what, okay? And standards are a jumping off point for that what. Right. So this is the curriculum framework saying that it breaks it down and has all this stuff. This is going to be helpful for you, a few weeks from now down the road, but you don't need to print this off and bring it in. It'll just help you when you start getting specific with writing your lesson plans and thinking about what needs to be taught. Okay. But for next week, all you need to do is bring in this guy, the standard. Okay. And so you can see the same thing if we do, history again. All of them here as well, and then the curriculum framework is here. So, any questions about finding your Virginia SOL standards? Yeah.
So we bring in the standards for our specific subject, right?
Yeah, and try to think about like what grade level you'd like to teach. So you don't have to bring 6 through 12. You can just 8th grade, 10th grade. All right. So how many people have heard of the Common Core? A couple people. Okay. So here's the deal. Give you a short history of the Common Core here. The Common Core standards were created about 4 or 5 years ago. They are being implemented in 46 states in the U.S., with the exception of Nebraska, Alaska, Texas, and Virginia. Okay, so our Department of Education decided that our standards were rigorous enough where we did not need to adopt the Common Core standards. Okay. The Common Core standards are only, right now there's only math and English language arts, okay? But they do have, and I'll show you in a second, they do have in those standards an area where there's history standards that support the English language arts, there's science standards that support the English language arts standards, stuff like that. I'll show you that in a second. Now, I totally forgot, do we have any science people? I know there was a middle school. Okay, okay. So there are science standards, there have been science standards that have been released, and some states have decided to adopt them, but they're not like widespread quite as much as the Common Core standards are. and these are called next generation science standards. So you science people, if you're going to decide to do it, whatever unit you decide to teach, check out the next generation science standards and bring those in as well. Okay. Everybody else is going to bring in Common Core, which I'll show you in a second. Okay. So Virginia hasn't adopted the Common Core. That's fine. But many of you guys are going to end up teaching outside of the state of Virginia. If you teach outside of the state of Virginia, it's really important that you guys are comfortable with Common Core standards, because unless you're going to go to Alaska, Texas, or Nebraska, you're going to see them. And they're being, essentially this next year, they're going to be in every single one of those states, like fully rolled out. And because I work in school districts outside of the state of Virginia, as I travel around, they're going through the process of using these different standards. And there's different assessments that go along with them too. So in Virginia, we have our SOLs. The Common Core standards, there's 2 different assessments that states have a choice of which one they want to use. One of them is called PARC, and this doesn't really matter, it's just for your information. And it's the Partnership for Assessment of Readiness of Career in College. And then there's one called Smarter Balance, which I don't think really stands for anything. And you'll learn in education, we love our acronyms. Everything has to have an acronym. So those are the Common Core standards. You're also going to have to align your unit and lesson plans with Common Core. So you're going to have a spot for your Virginia standards and a spot for your Common Core standards. It's just essentially saying that what I'm teaching here aligns with both of these. Okay, so it's just 2 different sets of standards. It's just sort of saying that it aligns with all of it. Okay, so they're not mutually exclusive. The standards can work together, and you're going to try to figure out what fits in that area. Okay, so let's take a look at these Common Core standards for a second. So if you look up just CCSS, Common Core State Standards, a couple of misconceptions about Common Core Standards. They're not, I put on your syllabus national standards in quotations. That's because they're not obviously national standards. There's a lot of pushback against these, particularly from more conservative states who don't like government intervention, because they see this as the federal government intruding on what's traditionally a state run thing, which is schools. And so there's some of the states, like I know Alabama, and then some of the other states like Iowa, Indiana are kind of getting a little bit of pushback from this. But there is some money that's tied to these through federal grants. So Virginia's kind of missing out on a chance to win federal grants. But beyond that, there's no incentive for states to really adopt these, which is one of the reasons that Virginia decided not to. So in the end, it might be that Virginia kind of dodged a bullet, or we might end up kind of behind the times. And we'll talk more about this as we get into the semester, but I just wanted to show you guys this site. So discover the math standards, English language arts standards are right here. These are going to be a little bit different. So what you'll find out, particularly math people, is if you're teaching like grade, you want to do a grade 7 unit or something like that. What you might find as you look through these is that what's taught in grade 7 in Virginia is actually taught in grade 6 for Common Core. All right, so you might see some differences there. Okay, but you'll see it's very similar to what you saw before. It's got all the subjects here. So if we look at algebra, these are the different categories. So then over here you can see the standards. So these are the interpret structure of expressions, write expressions in equivalent forms, and so on. Right. So this is very, very similar to what's on the Virginia Department of Ed. It's just going to be different structure, and it might be in different grade levels, because the math is probably the bigger departure. So English language arts. Those of you who are teaching English, you'll pull over here and try to find the standards that align with whatever Virginia SOLs you're using. So you can go over here and kind of search around, whether it's informational text, writing, speaking, and listening. You're just trying to find some standards that are going to work with your unit. It's not exclusive. Like, you don't want to take a ton of stuff if you're not going to focus on it. Like, if you were teaching an English unit, you could probably find something from each of those categories that would fit in your unit, but that means you have to teach and assess that too. You don't just put it there as a goal if you're not going to teach and assess it, right? So just be choosy about what you put in there and think about what's the big focus of this. Those of you people who are doing It's history and then science. You'll be down here. All right. And what these are essentially, they're broad, so it's 6 to 8, 9, 12, whatever. So if you're going to do 6 to 8, so essentially this is saying stuff like, determining the meaning of words and phrases they are used in text, including vocabulary specific to social studies. So these are like reading, writing standards that should come up in social studies classrooms, should come up in science classrooms. Okay. So it's meant in here to like support what happens in the English class, essentially. All right. So same thing with science and here. We do 9, 10. Cite specific textual evidence to support analysis of science and technical texts. The same kind of deal as before, just with science texts as opposed to history texts. Okay. So these are the Common Core standards. Does this make sense? Any questions about like Common Core versus SOL or? Yeah.
So do we need to print out both the Common Core standards and the SOL?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Take your question too. But just the ones that you think you're going to use. Okay. So those are your standards. And thus ends the required text and material section. All right, so attendance requirements. Obviously, this is a once a week, longer course. So it's important that you guys are here. And that means both physically and also mentally with regard to just like coming prepared. So if we have readings that need to be done, just make sure you guys do them in advance. I really tried to scale back the readings this year and only assign stuff that was like really important that we're going to focus on in class. So you should see a direct connection between what you read and what we do in class, at least at some point every week. And so we'll try to keep that up. I'll show you the scale. If you miss classes that are unexcused, so if you're sick, you have a doctor's note, something came up family-wise, whatever. I understand stuff like that, and generally I give you guys a chance to do a makeup assignment if you have to miss. But it does make things difficult, and because it's like a 2 hour and 45-minute class or whatever, we do a lot of stuff. So missing one class is like missing an entire week of another class. And when you only have, because we have a couple of online classes, so we maybe meet like 12 times, I think. So you think about you missing like 1/12 of the semester. We might cover stuff. I go over things that are due the next week and things like that. So just make sure that if at all possible, you're here. If you do need to miss, one of my biggest pet peeves is getting an email like after class and then you saying, sorry, I wasn't there. If you have to miss class, please let me know in advance. Like you wake up, you're sick, shoot me a quick email. If you had to head out of town for a family thing, shoot me a quick email and let me know. Once you feel better, we'll work it out. We'll figure out an alternate assignment, things like that. But please let me know prior to, because it just makes things a lot easier from a preparation standpoint. Okay. But if you have unexcused absences, I don't hear from you, whatever, then you lose like 30 of your participation points each time you're not here. Trust me, what I found out last semester, because I had a couple issues, was that those 100 participation points that you guys have can really, if you show up and you're actively engaged and all that stuff, then you're going to get your 100 points. It's not like I'm going around like, okay, such and such only talked twice today, things like that. It's not like that. If you show up and you're engaged and you're participating, you're going to be good on your 100 points. But losing those can really hurt your grade. I noticed last semester for a couple people. So just make sure that you're keeping up with stuff. Okay. Completing work on time. If there's ever a time where you need an extra whatever, you can let me know and we can try to work it out. Generally, it makes my life a lot easier when I get things on time because I can grade them and get them back to you and give you feedback. So just make sure that if there's an issue where you foresee 4 days in advance, like I'm not going to be able to get this done, or I'm going to need an extra like half a day, can I have that, whatever. I'm usually flexible with that. But if I get an email like day of and I'm like, that tends to be a little bit tougher to negotiate because at that point it's kind of like a time management thing, right? So if you know in advance that you see this thing coming up and you're going to need an extra little bit of time, let me know and we can work with that. Here's the grading scale. Quality of work, obviously, you guys are undergraduates. Policy for adding courses and dropping courses down there. If you have any questions, let me know. This course adheres to the honor code. disability accommodations, if you guys have any access plans, let me know. Even if you don't have an access plan, there's something that's going on, please let me know. The sooner I know about that stuff, the more I can accommodate for things. Inclement weather policy. So Jamie's cancellation policy is there. Because I live outside of Charlottesville, thought it was like over there. Because I live in Charlottesville, there might be a time where like it snows over there and not over here. That hasn't really ever happened except maybe once. And because this is the fall semester, generally you don't get much snow anyway. But I heard this might be a nasty winter, so who knows. The one thing is that if they cancel class, like the university does, I'm not really into the Saturday makeup days. So we will do like an alternate assignment or something like that to make up the time. Okay. The only way we'd ever meet on Saturdays is if it was like the very last class and it was like crunch time and we had to meet, something like that. Generally, we'll find a way around it. Okay. Religious observation accommodations, let me know about that stuff too, if there's any days that you need to miss because of that. Cell phone and computer policies. Because being engaged is important, all I ask is that if you guys, with your cell phones, just to keep them off the tables, kind of out of sight. And like I know people that kind of leave them at the top of their bags, and that tends to be a little bit tempting when you like look down and see you got a text message. So it's better if it's just kind of out of sight. Now that being said, there are going to be times where I might ask you to use them to like look up stuff or to research or to check, like if you want to just keep your standards on your cell phone, that's fine. I don't have a problem with you guys using them in the class. Same thing with tablets, computers. I'm totally on board because there'll be times when if you want to bring your computer to class, bring it. There'll be times when we'll use them. And they can be good tools. And there'll be times when you're working on unit plans in here where it might be nice to have something to type on. That being said, if we're doing like a discussion in terms of the computers or tablets, if we're doing like a discussion or whatever and you're not necessarily using it, then just kind of close it and put it off to the side. With the phones, if your group finishes up 2 minutes before we're going to come back together as a whole class and you want to go to get your phone, that's fine. Like I'm not like a Nazi with it or anything like that. I just know that it tends to be like a distraction and then, you lose focus and all that stuff. So, if we have a break, use it. If there's a couple minutes of downtime, use it. That's totally fine. Just while we're actively doing stuff, just trying to keep them off the tables and out of sight because that tends to be the easiest way to handle it. Okay? All right, so topics, reading assignments, and dates down here. There's one kind of addendum to this, and that's that first thing where it says from next week on, the blog, there'll be new blog posts required. I'm going to talk about that in a second, but we're actually going to push that back one extra week, so it'll be the third week of class where the first one will be due, or by the third week of class, just because of this morning issue. What you can see here is that there's class assignments and class dates and assignments due on the left side, essential questions and topics in the middle, and then readings. These readings are to be completed prior to class. Okay? So when it's on that day, it means make sure you've read it prior to coming to class. So for next week, there's How People Learn Chapter 6, and then SMART Chapters 1 and 2. And the SMART book is also on Blackboard. Okay, so it's there's like 4 chapters we'll read from SMART, and then the Chapter 6 from How People Learn, and that's all, those are all both on Blackboard. Okay. So don't worry about that blog post for the next class. We'll push that back. So anyway, this continues obviously throughout as we progress. So the first assignment you guys have due, just that's not the blog thing, which I'll talk about in a second, is a unit, a mini unit rough draft, which is going to be due in about a month. And so that's a rough draft. All right. What you'll notice about this class is you get lots of feedback. This is, in a way, you're kind of learning a new language. And so I'll make sure that you guys are getting feedback and that you're kind of just, so it's your job to just respond to that feedback and make sure you're progressing. And if you do that stuff, you'll be fine. Because there's no assignment that you turn in that hasn't been checked at some point by me. Okay. So that's the first thing doing. We'll build that over the next couple weeks. We'll start building those units and you'll get an idea for what it looks like, and we'll kind of go from there. And then your rough draft of your first lesson is due beginning of October. The reason this is due now is because you're going to, in 371, you're actually going to teach a couple parts of this lesson in 371. So it's called like peer teaching. So you'll be teaching to other people in class. in 371, and you'll break off into smaller groups. It's usually like around 10, 12 people in a class, and you guys will teach a couple segments of this. So it's important to have at least an idea of what that is done prior to obviously that peer teaching part. They'll talk more about that in 371 on Friday. Okay, so we'll work our way down. You can see here we do have some virtual classes. The first one being 9/18. I don't know what that's exactly going to look like yet. It's going to depend on how far we get prior to that date. It might be I give you guys a couple of things to work on. It might be I post like a PowerPoint. I have a program on my computer where you can record sound with PowerPoint and then put it on YouTube. So sometimes I've done that, just like a brief one, just to give you guys some pointers, and then there's an assignment. I might ask you guys to meet in small groups, during class time, just to do a couple things, and so you're ready to go next week or the week after that. But I'll let you guys know what that's going to look like. So there's a couple of virtual classes over the course of the semester where I'm out of town working in schools, and so those will be determined in terms of what the content's going to look like the week prior to. The other thing that I started doing is sending out emails weekly with just kind of an update, because this isn't the most streamlined, of course. There's a lot of stuff involved, and so each week I try to send out just a Blackboard email that says, here's what's due next week, here's what the readings are, things like that, just to kind of keep you guys up. Okay, so that'd be helpful. All right, and then our last class is on the 3rd. And then we don't have an exam for this class. You're just dropping off your final unit, so it's December 10th. I put electronic submission likely. More than likely, I'll just have you guys submit them electronically, but that may change depending on how things go. So I may have hard copies, and as we get closer to the end, I'll let you know about that. Okay. So that's on the 10th, and so you can turn in that unit anytime between the last class and the 10th. It's not like you have to wait for the 10th. It's not. If you want to finish it up, get it off your plate, that's fine. It gives me more time to grade. All right, here's the attendance and class participation. You can kind of see all this stuff. Obviously, being engaged, what I've noticed is that people who aren't actively engaged in class quite as much tend to miss out on some stuff. And so using this time to really help yourself is going to be really beneficial. So just make sure you're kind of keeping up and staying engaged and all that stuff. It's keeping up with the readings, keeping up with assignments. Here you can see the absences and how they hurt you with regard to losing those participation points. The other thing I will tell you is that make sure you're on time. And I know that every now and then there's a train or whatever. I understand that part, but there's something that you'll talk about this in 371. But another thing in addition to your academic stuff in the College of Ed, there's also dispositional. Which is essentially your work habits, your habits of mind, stuff like that. And so that's part of that is showing up on time. If you went to your first period class and you were 15 minutes late, what would happen? And I've heard principals who have dismissed teachers because they couldn't get there on time. So just make sure that you're practicing that. If you have a punctuality problem, it's always possible to work on that. I've seen people get much better with it over the course of a semester. So just make sure you're here, because we really try to start right around 1:25, just in respect to the people who are here and making sure we get out on time and all that stuff. Okay. We'll take a break halfway through class, about a 15-minute break, so you can expect that every week. Won't ever shortchange you on that guy. And generally we won't go past 4:10 would probably be a safe bet in terms of when we'll be done. Some weeks might be a little bit earlier, but just depending on how much we have to get through and kind of where we are in regards to stuff. I won't ever hold you guys late or anything like that. So the last assignment that you're going to turn in, and this is what we're going to do the very last day of class in December, so don't worry about this guy right now. It's a short assignment, but it's also a really cool one. So you guys are going to interview via email, phone, whatever, a teacher, and it can be an old teacher you've had, it can be a family member, anything like that. If you don't know a teacher, I can put you in touch with some of our old students who are out in the field now, who are happy to talk to you. It works better if it's someone from the same content area, but it doesn't always have to be that way. And you're going to ask them what their challenges are in the classroom, and then you're going to respond to those challenges based on all we've learned over the course of the semester. So it's kind of like a culminating assignment, giving you guys a chance to really implement a lot of the things that you've learned. Okay, so that's in the semester. Come, before Thanksgiving or something like that, we'll talk about that assignment a little more specifically. All right, so the last thing is this this new thing I'm doing. So a little bit of history about the readings and what we used to do. We used to have these things called best practice journals, which were like this guy. So we used to have people keep these, which was fine every week, and there was like an assignment. You jot down, like on one side it was stuff about your readings, and the other side was stuff about class, which worked fine. But I've been trying to, I don't know, progress. So what we're going to do this time is that you guys are going to keep your thoughts on your readings via blog. And I have a link on Blackboard, and all you're going to do is just after you do your first one, which will be next week, before class the following. So these are due before class. So whenever before class, if it's 1:15, that's totally fine, just as long as it's before class. And you'll post your on Blackboard. You'll give me the link for your blog. There's a discussion page or there's a discussion post on Blackboard where you can add a post that includes your blog, a link to your blog, so that I have all the links just in one spot, and so that I can just click on them. Record keeping wise, that makes it way easier. Last semester I had people doing like PowerPoint notebooks kind of thing, which was cool, but it got a little bit clumsy and difficult to keep track of. So this is easy because there's a link. It'll be on Blackboard the entire semester. You don't have to send a new link. You don't have to send me anything. You just need to make sure you update it, okay, with a new post. Lengthwise, like I don't expect these to be really, really like long things. But what I do want you to do is you're going to respond to the essential question for the week. Occasionally I've got like special posts that I'll ask you guys to do. But these are our essential questions. I mentioned that right here, like these underlined things. So and sometimes the essential question is the same for a couple weeks. And so what you're going to do is respond to the essential question based on what you read. Okay, so whatever readings there were for that week, you're going to think about how can I respond to this essential question based on the readings, right? The second part to it is that there are two email updates that get sent out daily that have really good information about what's happening in the world of education. One is Ed Week, which is it's like a newspaper publication that obviously comes out weekly. And I think they have it down in the library at ETMC if you ever go down there. And the other one is ASCD Smart Brief. ASCD is the organization that sends me out to work in schools. They're a very, very well-known, respected professional organization that has a lot of good information for teachers. So this email you'll get daily, okay, after you sign up. There may be some days where you're just delete it and not look at it. It's totally fine. But what you need to do is, over the course of that week, so starting after Wednesday to Tuesday, and you'll get it. It doesn't come on weekends, so you'll get it during the week. So after class, up until the next class, just to select one article. And they're articles like newspaper articles. They're not like long 20-page things. They're like 1 page. So it's not stuff that's like really long. But you're going to select one article that you feel like relates to the readings or the essential question for that week. And you're going to incorporate that in your response as well. Okay. So I cut back on the readings that I assigned you guys with the hope that you would this kind of gives you a little ownership and some direction over what you read. As long as it relates to the essential question for that week, totally fine. So let me show you really quickly here what these look like. And they, and I don't know if it'll be like this when you sign up, but for me, they come right around noon every day. So you can set your watch to them. So here's the ASCD Smart Brief. Okay. So you get this, and it's got links. So students delve deeper into science, real-world connections. Students create new identity after rival districts merge. So that's kind of a classroom community type thing. So when we talk about where do we teach, which is our first essential question, that might be a great article. Okay. I mean, obviously you're not going to get this one because it was today or yesterday, but so that's one you can think about using because it's talking about like how is this school going to build community with these rival districts, right? And that's where we teach. Okay. So the essential questions are meant to be broad to give you some flexibility over what you'd like to read about. And again, it's just one article a week. It's not one a day. It's not any of that. So there might be days where you're just going to delete it, but you may just want to, consistently just scroll through and look at them just to make sure that you're not missing anything. Each day it only takes 2 seconds to scroll through and read them or read the titles. So summer tour of Turkey to aid Vermont teachers' lessons. Are MOOCs the next big thing in K-12 education? That's kind of a where we teach question too, right? Arizona schools are losing money to online course providers. It's all positive news. Anyway, so you can see that this is what the ASC Smart Group wanted. It's broken into sections. So there's like policy, there's news, there's if you want a job, there's job listings down here as well. This is really good, and if you would easily find a bunch of articles that are going to fit with the essential questions. The second one is Education Week, and this is a little bit different. There's usually like a top story that's a little bit longer, and then they have blog posts down here, and these blog posts are totally fine to use if you see one that you really like. So they have different categories of blogs that people write. The New American High School, as school begins, Common Core tensions flare. I mentioned that there's some discord over Common Core. All that stuff. So these are the 2 things you're going to sign up for. The instructions are on the syllabus. The links you go to sign up. And just do this, if you try to do this today or tomorrow, just so you can, start getting them and start getting a feel for it. And so you'll get those again once a day. If you already found an article and you don't want to read it anymore, delete it, it's fine. But there is some good stuff that they have on there. Okay, so hopefully you'll find that interesting and you'll learn get a broader perspective of what's going on in education, because the reason I love this stuff is because it really is like pervasive in our society. Like education kind of runs throughout everything. And it's a really big political issue right now because Congress is in the process of trying to reauthorize No Child Left Behind and see how that legislation is going to change and what's going to be different about it. But because we've got our conservative bill and then our liberal bill, and there's not a whole lot of common ground among those 2 things, so it may not happen real soon. Anyway, so there's a lot going on in education right now, and you'll see some cool stuff in there with regard to people trying new things, school districts that have found success with stuff, but just try to find one that's going to fit with what you read, with your essential question for that particular day. So who do we teach, where do we teach, things like that. Okay. So I put down Blogster, WordPress, Blogger. I think Blogger is the Google one. So does everybody know kind of how to create one? Does anybody have any? It's not. It's really easy. Like if you go to any of these sites and just make an account, it's like it doesn't need to be like pretty. Like you don't need to put like images and a great. You can feel free to if you want to. But just having just like a place where you can write stuff. So if we went to Blogster, so join. Step 1, build your blogs. Enter all this stuff. Choose a password. We'll kind of join Blogster, and then you're good to go. Right, and then you'll have a link to it, and that link to this is what you'll put on Blackboard. Okay, but this doesn't have. You don't need to do. I mean, I would go ahead and get your blog started in terms of making it, but you won't have a post due until the week after next. Okay, so nothing is due next week except for. There'll be a couple little things I'll show you in a second, but the readings are the main thing. So if you have any problems, check us out, and if you have any problems going into next week creating this, let me know and we can go through the process. Okay. So if anybody has any issues, just shoot me an email and we can walk through it together. Okay, so that is the syllabus. Do you guys have any questions for me that are kind of immediately on your brains? Yeah.
When you were mentioning picking an article, are we supposed to pick one from each of
Just
the
one.
sites?
Yeah, just one total, yeah. It's just the variety is nice, you know, because it gives you more options. But if you find that there's one that you always go to, you can unsubscribe from the other one. I mean, that's okay too. All right. So the last couple things we're going to do today is just for me to give you a few things to think about prior to next week. So these are kind of the things we're going to start with. So this is your first assignment to think about. And just, again, this is like a brainstorm. You don't need to spend a ton of time on this, maybe like 5 minutes. It's thinking of the teachers you encountered whom you believe to be the most effective. Right? So the most effective teachers you remember. And that might not necessarily be your favorite teachers. It might be. But people who you felt like were really effective in helping you learn. What qualities did they exhibit? And this PowerPoint is, I put all the PowerPoints on Blackboard, usually prior to class. Some people like to print them off. I try to do it the night before. It doesn't always happen. But it will definitely be up there before, you know, because since I teach the morning class, it'll definitely be up there prior to that class. This is like a modified version of it though, so this slide is up there on that PowerPoint. You just might have to dig for it if you want. So the qualities these teachers exhibited, behaviors that were the norm for them, so what kind of behaviors did they exhibit consistently, and then what were their classroom environments like? All right, so what were those classroom environments like? All right, so this is one thing you're going to think about. Yeah.
Are we writing this or typing this?
You're just writing it. Yeah, this is just a very informal. All the stuff I'm giving you today is just informal stuff. It's just so when we start class next week, we're not behind just because of this morning. So, qualities they exhibited, behaviors that were the norm, in their classroom environments. Everybody got it? Okay. So I told you about next week, we'll start with the base groups. So another thing that we're going to do at the beginning of class next week is when you get in your groups, you guys are going to talk about routines for this class, like what routines or what expectations might we need in this class to help things run smoothly, just with regard to your group work that's happening in class, but also things that I can do as well. So this is the second thing I'm going to ask you guys to brainstorm prior to next week's class, is just what routines or expectations might we need in this class to help things run smoothly, right? Because I'm going to have you guys set those, and I'll type them up and put them on Blackboard under our materials page, and we'll come back to them a couple times over the course of the semester. It's always good just to kind of start things off with like, here's what we expect, and make sure those are clear, and make sure everybody gets that, because it just makes things run a lot more smoothly over the course of the semester. So that's the second thing to think about. Okay, and here's the last assignment that you guys have for next week. Okay, and this is a design your own postcard assignment, and what I'll do is after I show you this, I'll turn off the video and I'll go get you guys some postcards for this and bring them so you can have a bigger postcard to use. And for people watching, I will put them in my mailbox if you need them, which is down the hall to the right, even though you may not know where this room is. So this postcard is meant to be kind of a way for us to just share stuff about ourselves prior to kind of getting going with the semester. And so what you're going to do is, I'll show you what it looks like on the reverse side in a second, one that I did. But all you're going to do is just on the back side of the card, you're going to put, well, on the front side you're going to put some pictures, right, about like things that represent you. You can draw them, you can print them off, you can cut them out of magazines, newspapers, whatever. Just things that you feel like represent you. It doesn't have to be beautifully artistic. However, it will be going in the display case over there. So it's in the hallway. So just, know that people are going to see your stick figures if that's what you end up drawing. Okay. So this is what the front might look like. All right, so this is mine. I'm a big DC sports fan, which isn't always necessarily something I can stomach. But I like Nats baseball, Caps hockey, and pumped for the football season starting up. So I also am a big fan of 90s rap. And it's the stuff I grew up on, and I still contend that Tupac is the greatest rapper of all time. If you're interested in a CD, well, I guess people don't really have CDs anymore, but an iTunes download, All Eyes on Me is a great album. The other picture up there is just obviously flying. I, 2 weeks out of it every month, I'm in an airport flying somewhere to go work in the school district. So traveling has become a huge part of my life. 1 week at the beginning of August, I was in Georgia, Colorado, Hawaii, and then Texas to work in different school districts, and that was a very interesting trip. So I've gotten to see a lot of stuff that I normally wouldn't see. Some of it's really cool places. Some of them are, I don't know if anybody's ever been to Northwest Colorado, but it's not the most exciting place in the world. And so some of the places aren't quite as exciting, but I do travel a ton, and I've started to embrace it as just kind of like a, kind of a lifestyle thing, and getting to experience different stuff. So I have perspectives. One of the things you'll see over the course of our time here for the semester is that I have a lot of different perspectives I can bring from different school districts I work in different places. And a lot of the issues that we talk about in here and the things that you guys are going to learn are things that I'm working with teachers on, outside of here. So like writing good unit plans. There's a district in Colorado I'm working with, it's been a year now, there'll be a couple more years of it, where they're trying to revamp their curriculum into more quality unit plans. So the stuff that we're doing here is every bit the stuff that I work with schools on outside of here too, okay? And then one last thing that I figured I had to show you guys, this is my niece. This is Amelie, and my sister lives in California, so I do not get to see her nearly as much as I would like to. She just turned 9 months and is starting to interact. If you've ever been around there's the initial phase where they just kind of lay there, and don't do a whole lot and don't interact, but then they become more talkative and interactive. So it was really fun. I got to spend 4 or 5 days with her a few weeks ago, so that was cool. So anyway, she's a very new and big part of my life as well. All right, so this is what you're going to do next week, is just kind of put some pictures up there on your postcard. Just give a brief description on the back. It's not meant to be like a tedious assignment. It's just kind of saying that just what each picture represents. I'll take those, we'll put them up in the display case for the semester, and so, it's along with the ones from the other 370 class that meets on Monday. So they'll all be in there. So any questions about next week? You've got the readings on Blackboard, the couple of extra assignments I just gave you guys, and that'll get us started next week, so we're not super far behind. Should be good to go catching up. Any other questions or thoughts?